Welcome to episode 45 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
I was in Denver Sunday. I might have to my first football game.
You might
NFL.
have, or you might have been on their COVID injury list. So we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. This week
You
we've
know,
got. Sorry, what?
what you said about being on the COVID list is actually extra funny because I actually am sick. So that's actually a possibility too.
Yes, that was sort of the play I was making, but
Oh,
I was gonna dig your sickness later on in the show, but well, we can do it now if we want. So this week we've got great games to talk about, a game specifically to talk about, a virus that seems to be wrecking havoc on myriad of NFL rosters, commentators to make fun of, and as always, wild predictions to make. So let's go ahead and jump into our first segment of the night, which is our game of the week, which was going to be Ravens at Steelers, and it was going to be on Thanksgiving. But there have been two things that have happened since then. Not only was the original game that was supposed to be on Thanksgiving delayed to Sunday because, you know, Crimea River, the Ravens roster, it then got delayed again to today and then got delayed again to tomorrow. So, all kinds of craziness going on with that game. So obviously we can't talk about a game that hasn't happened yet. So we instead decided to go with the Panthers at Vikings game as sort of a as our replacement game of the week. We went with a highlight version of this game. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that for a few minutes. It was admittedly, even though I don't think either of these teams are playoff teams, it admittedly was a really exciting and fun game to watch with some crazy plays. And it ended with a missed field goal attempt that would have put the Panthers up. So let's get started talking about that. So this game, just I guess kind of looking at the bird's eye view, was absolutely a must win for the Vikings if they want to have any chance at making the playoffs. It's still really slim that they will, but they absolutely had to have this game. And they open up their opening drive with a touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, who has showed up on our Wrecked Face segment multiple times this season. He's having a great season. The chemistry with Cousins is kind of unreal. And then there were a series of kind of back and forth plays, an awesome interception by Eric Kendricks in the red zone to snatch the ball away from Carolina. And there were two plays that were just unreal, in my opinion, that happened. The first play was Jeremy Chin of the Panthers got a scoop and score. And I got to say, the ball placement on that fumble was, I can't think of a more ideal ball placement for a defender to pick up and run to the end zone. It literally was like it softly rolled to the left, perpendicular to the left of Cousins, and the defender was perfectly in line to literally just, with momentum, dip down, pick it up, and run straight full speed into the end zone. So he got his first fumble return. He didn't force the fumble, but he did recover it and score the touchdown. And then the same guy strips Dalvin Cook in the middle of a pile. Just, it's one of those plays where, where the running back gets gang tackled by like 25 guys, and then everybody kind of peels away from the pile. The running back, puts the ball over his head to act like he got 2 more yards than he did, and then they move on. No, this play, Jeremy Chin is somehow in the middle of that pile. He strips it away from Cook before Cook goes down, and then he returns the ball for a second fumble return touchdown of the game. I'm not aware of another time where someone has scored the same player has scored 2 fumble return touchdowns in a game, but it's probably happened before. But I think that was the first time I've ever seen it. So Joseph, do you have any comments on those plays specifically? Because those were pretty whacked.
Well, on the second one, it's close to that line of, was he considered down? Because like when he saw some momentum, usually they call the play dead. He's just like standing amongst all the tacklers, and then Chin just comes in there and just rips the ball out. It's like, wait, wouldn't he be considered? Like that seemed pretty close, him being down.
Oh, like you're saying you think they should have blown the whistle by that point?
I'm saying it was close. I'm saying that's where like that play, it's iffy to where it was close, and can have big impact on the game. So I'll have to watch it again right now, actually. But it did seem pretty close to me, and it just shows that there's some subjectivity to subjectivity to the close line, the fine line of making those calls and when someone's down or not.
Right. Yeah, no, that's totally true. And actually, to break on that point, there was a play in the Eagles Seahawks game last night.
Yes, that was dumb.
Where the reverse happened, where Wentz escaped a sack, but then they called it dead before he was down, and it was ruled a sack. And it's like, wait, you got to give this guy some time to get out of the pocket. I mean, goodness knows how much time you give Russell Wilson to escape stuff. Like, come on. So yeah, it is a difficult thing to kind of, because it's always a judgment call. There's not like an objective standard that can be used on every single play for when to blow it dead. But that was perhaps blown slightly late. But I would say it was, if the play had gone on for more than like another half second to a second, they probably would have blown the whistle on that one.
So I just watched it like 6 times while you were talking, and while it is close, the pile was still moving, and
yeah, because what you don't want to do is cut off the forward momentum, right?
It's so close. Yeah, it's not offensive like the Wentz call. Like it wasn't a bad call to let it keep going, because Cook is elusive. He could break out. Who knows? People have broken out before. Marshawn Lynch used to always do that. Do that a lot. But I guess, yeah, Cook should have secured the ball, but it's just kind of crazy that Chin came in and ripped it out. So
yeah, so those plays were crazy. So at this point, the Panthers were actually up 21-10, and the Panthers are driving after they get the ball back. They're driving down, and then the Vikings block a field goal attempt, and at that point they're able to, on that drive, go down and score a field goal of their own to put the score at 21-13, so within a 1-score game. And then they kind of exchange a few plays. There's the Jefferson touchdown in the corner of the end zone. They convert the 2 points to put it within a field goal, 24-21. And then the Vikings muff the punt. Do you ever have that feeling when you're watching the guy that's supposed to return the punt, you just know you just feel it in your gut, it's going to be a muff? Do you ever have that?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I don't know if it's like the body language. I don't know if it's the body language or like the way that they're standing or something, but there's just this, like, yeah, this ball is just going to bounce off his chest. I don't know. It's an X Factor thing, I guess, but...
Is it because you're used to what happened from the Niners back in 2011?
Thanks for bringing that up, Joseph. You're sick? Are you trying to make me sick too? What is this? No, I don't think it's because of that. I mean, I obviously have I wake up in cold sweats thinking about that play, but no, I don't think it's because of that. I think there's just I think there's a certain I don't want to make it sound more complicated than it is, but I think there's a certain like way that the kicking team can create momentum against the returner, and the way that the returner's body language sort of responds to the pressure of that makes it way more likely that they're going to muff. And I think that in that situation, I could just tell. I was like, yeah, there's something about the way his arms are, the way that the Panthers are just flying at him, that there's going to be a muff here. And he muffed it. And then, Teddy Bridgewater, who for all of the thousands and thousands of yards that he's going to throw for this season, misses a wide open receiver in the end zone, and the Panthers have to kick. So they go 27-21. Vikings get the ball back with just under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. And then Cousins gets that awesome touchdown pass to Chad Beebe with 46 seconds left. And then the Panthers march down the field, and his name's Joey Sly, great name, misses a 54-yard field goal attempt, and the Vikings win 28-27. So the Vikings got to be on the other end of missing a field goal, and actually won because of it this time. So yeah, that was that game. Did you have any other comments or thoughts on this one? Okay. I usually do a best and least player of the game. I didn't have a least player of the game, but my best player of the game was easily Jeremy Chinn. I mean, for a guy to have 2 fumble recoveries and 2 touchdowns is awesome. And he also had 13 tackles too. Wow. So he was all over the place. Clearly the star of the day, even though the Panthers lost. All right, so let's go on to our second segment of the night, which is our Who Wrecked Face this week. And Joseph's going to start off with offense.
All right. First, we have Saints rushing. They were 44 for 229, which is a 5.2 average, and they had 4 rushing touchdowns. And then Derrick Henry, he has shown up on here more than once. 27 for 178. That's a 6.6 average and 3 rushing touchdowns. He ran all over the Colts.
Week after week.
Yeah. Will Fuller for the Texans, 6 out of 7 receptions. 6 receptions out of 7 targets for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he was recently suspended for the rest of the year for performance-enhancing fail. So we'll see if he...
Wait, sorry, who is this again?
Will Fuller, the receiver for the Texans.
Okay.
He got suspended, so we'll see if that was legitimate or what happened there, and if he... all that. So, and then 2 players from the Chiefs. They basically just field each other. Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, 37 of 49 for 460 yards, 3 touchdowns and no picks. And all of those touchdowns with Tyreek Hill, who, you ready for this? 13 receptions, 269 receiving.
Wow.
He had 203, I think, receiving yards in the first quarter of the game, which actually is not a record. I looked at that's crazy. Guy named Lee Evans for the Bills, he was back in the 2000s, had 205 receiving yards in the first quarter, in a quarter of a game. So, but still, 13 for 269, 3 touchdowns, a top 15 receiving performance of all time. Tyreek Hill is dangerous and elusive in the open field. So, congrats to the Chiefs and putting up that record performance.
I think with that game, I would say that Mahomes is probably moved into the number 1 spot for MVP.
Yeah, I think he was already there, but Rodgers is close.
Yeah, Rodgers has the most touchdowns.
Yeah, he's just below him. But I think Mahomes was already number 1, or like right there, neck and neck. But that definitely gave him the edge. Wilson has definitely dropped. He's number 3 right now, probably maybe number 4.
Yeah,
but he's every week he's just slowly getting worse.
Like, yeah, his second half of the season has been much worse than the first half.
Like he's still gonna probably end up having a really good season. But he was looking like having one of the greatest of all time and that's being eroded each week.
I'm just
Which
silently gleeful over here.
I was gonna say, which none of us are complaining about, just a fact.
Okay, so the defensive picks. This week is a celebration of defense,
Uh,
which I know Joseph hates, but so what? So the first one is none other than Jeremy Chin, safety for Carolina. 13 tackles, QB hit, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 touchdowns. And then I actually got to pick a 49er this week because he had the highest rated PFF defensive rating of this week, like league wide. Jimmy Ward, safety, 5 tackles, 1 pass defended, and 2 forced fumbles. He did not recover the fumbles, but he did force 2 fumbles. Tyrell Adams, linebacker for Houston, 17 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. And then AJ Klein, linebacker for Buffalo, 14 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, and a pass defended. I think this is the best defensive wrecked face week we've had so far this season. This week was stacked. And there were guys with 15 plus tackles that I didn't even list on here because I didn't want to keep going on and on. So this week was stacked. So Joseph, your offense can suck it. All right, so segment 3 is our news stories for the week. So what we wanted to talk about this week was the COVID effect, because so far this season there's been COVID has impacted some things. There have been several rosters with a small handful of players that have been on their COVID reserved list. I forget the official name. I think it's COVID I think it's COVID reserved something. I'll just call it that for the sake of not tripping over my words. And there have been a couple of games moved, a couple of buys shifted around, but for the most part, it actually hasn't been. I actually think the NFL has done a really good job of managing that potential crisis. And then this last week happened. So there have been some things we've never really seen before. Number one, and I'll let Joseph talk about this because he was the one that sent me the article, but the Broncos quarterback situation, just the one word for it is just completely decimated. So why don't you just explain what happened with that?
Yeah, let me find your. So apparently, all right. So Jeff Driscoll was some backup quarterback for the Broncos. He tested positive for COVID, and all 3 of the eligible quarterbacks, Drew Lock, Brett Rypien, and Blake Bortles, were deemed to be high risk. Quote here: "We're each deemed to be high risk COVID-19 close context, and none of the 3 can be in uniform for Sunday's game." This is obviously last week. Yeah, they must have been in contact with him, didn't have mask on, and since Jeff got positive, then all of them are out. I don't know why they couldn't just all test them and see if the negative test. Because anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. Basically, they had no quarterback. So the Broncos are actually considering using one of their coaches. I don't know which coach, but they were going to use a coach for starting quarterback, and I don't think they were allowed to do that. So they ended up using a undrafted wide receiver, Kendall Hinton, who was from their practice squad. And he went 1 for 9 with 2 interceptions and a few rushing plays.
Barn burner.
I watched a little bit of it. It was not good.
Was it pretty brutal?
Yeah, yeah. But kind of shame on the NFL because, the Ravens get like a third of their team sick, and they're willing to just keep extending the game. And I'm pretty sure they extended the game again after they found out Lamar Jackson got sick. So that's some pretty big hypocrisy, in my opinion. Oh, Lamar Jackson gets sick. We
Oh yeah,
can't
no,
allow
they've
that.
delayed it. They've delayed that game 3 times now.
Yeah, and at least one of them was after Lamar got sick, which is pretty obvious. It's like I want Lamar to play against the Steelers. Um, so but then yeah, the Broncos have an issue, and they're lucky. I guess they're lucky they didn't really be in a playoff spot because if they were in a playoff spot, they should have the right to be really, really mad. They should be have a right to be upset. But um, yeah, I mean, why couldn't they just test all the other guys? Right? This whole thing, if they're relying on tests, say that you have COVID, such that they're going to make postpone games and make rule changes and all that. Why would they not rely on negative tests to say that someone doesn't have COVID so that Drew Lock or Bortles or someone could play? That's inconsistent. Just say, oh, no, you're high risk, you're all not able to play, is not right. Just um, just test them. I mean, if the test is valid one direction, why would you not consider it valid in the other direction?
Yeah, I don't that's a good question. I don't have like a great medical answer to that question, but I mean, I think what I'm most frustrated about is the inconsistency because the the Ravens clearly have been given the spoiled child treatment here. I mean, the fact that they got 3 delays and one of them was clearly because they don't want to lose ratings because Lamar Jackson wouldn't be playing is absurd. I mean, the Niners played the Packers a few weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, and they had like 5 guys on the COVID list, and they were not willing to delay that game. But
Or
then,
the Dolphins had 4 or 5 coaches out.
yeah, like I just don't see why, especially a Thursday night game, since Thursday nights are kind of garbage anyway, why they can't delay just delay the game a couple of days until they get a chance to maybe run a second round of tests, a second round of negatives, then you get some players back. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, they were willing to put the Broncos Steelers on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, which are both non-football days of the week. But they weren't even willing to delay the Broncos Saints game. Now, to be fair, the Broncos probably weren't going to win that game anyway, even if they had a quarterback. But still,
Yeah.
any game is any team's game, and there's a chance that they could have, and you obviously aren't giving them a chance if they're putting a wide receiver behind center. So that sucked. So I just think, I mean, do you agree that the biggest issue is the inconsistency with the way this is being handled?
Yeah. And the fact that the Steelers have gotten the short end of the stick, this is embarrassing too, right? There was the Titans issue because the Titans got COVID. The Steelers have lost a bye. They've had games rescheduled, and like nothing beneficial has been given to the Steelers through what's happened with teams that have gotten COVID that they played against this. It is pretty unfair, actually.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing that they sort of passively benefited from was the fact that they didn't have to play. They haven't played a game in a week and a half now, right? So they've sort of gotten a extended time off. But after this Wednesday game, though, I looked, and they're going to be playing. So they play Wednesday, and then they play 5 days later.
Well, and they never got their bye. They never. I think they never got a bye this year.
That's correct. They did not. They did not, and they're not going to.
Yeah, and which let's clip in a minute. If there's this stupidity about an 8th playoff team, they're not even going to get a bye by being possibly the number 1 seed in the AFC either.
Yeah, let's talk about that now, actually. So, yeah, the NFL is considering adding an 8th playoff team and at the same time deleting the first round bye, which they had already cut down from 2 teams to 1, and they're considering just getting rid of it, period. Now, help me understand this, because I'm not sure why this is the case. Why does the COVID situation have anything to do with adding an 8th team?
Because season is, I think, maybe if it's cut short, or teams are not punished, but are affected, but not be able to play all the games or something. They want to be able to allow, if teams are affected by COVID, they want to be able to allow this to help out. But it's like, if that's the case, why does how does an 8th?
It doesn't. I mean, because
It's
for
like,
all we know, the team that gets the 8th spot wasn't even that affected by COVID.
yeah, and so it's like you just add an extra team. It's like, oh, all it is doing is saying that basically teams 9 and 8 could have fought for the 7th spot. It's like, yeah, but team 6 and 5 could have fought for the 3 spots, and team 1 is getting hurt because they don't get a bye. So like, just adding an 8th team doesn't just fix the issue.
Right. Yeah, I don't get that at all. And I think taking away the bye makes way less sense than adding a second one. But the problem, I guess, is if you add a second bye, you can't have 2 byes. If you have an even number of byes, you have to have an odd number of playoff teams, and if you have an odd number of byes, you have to have an even number of playoff teams, right? Or no, am I saying no? That's not right. If you have an odd number of byes, you have to have a odd number of playoff teams
from a conference.
But if you can't have an even number of byes and an even number of playoff teams.
No, you can. If it's 2 and 6, right? Like it has been. You just can't do 2 and 8 because there's 6 teams left over.
Oh, right, yeah, because you can't get it down to 3. Okay, that's true. Yeah, so the way they would do it, it would be 2, either no byes or 2 byes with 6 teams that then. Wait, but no, that wouldn't work though, right? If they had 2 byes.
It won't work with
and 6 teams, because then it's 6 down to 3 with 2 left over, so you'd have 5 teams.
No. It's 6 and 2 is what it was previous year.
No. I mean, I meant 6 plus 2. So 8 total, where 2 get byes. That doesn't work. You'd have to have a third bye. Right, but then that doesn't work either, because then you have
4.
You'd have to have 4 byes.
You have to have multiples of. So yeah, basically, there's something I forgot what it is. I do college basketball.
But yeah, so if you go from, this is ridiculous. If you go from 1 bye with 7 total teams, which works mathematically, then then you go to 8 teams, you either have to have 0 byes or 4 byes.
Third.
Yeah.
Have 4 byes.
And there's no way that they're going to do 4 byes.
Yeah. Well,
even though that would still make more sense than having none.
Yeah, I mean, there's no. Look at the standings. Like, well, in the NFC, this doesn't really matter, right? The Vikings and Bears, you don't deserve a chance to the playoffs. Get out of here. Like, just stop that. AFC, yeah, it's better. AFC is a little more loaded. Raiders, Colts, Ravens, Dolphins fighting it out. But still, like, you already had the 17. Me, the only way an 8 team should be added is if the season is cut short because of COVID. If they decide to cut the season short, that's it. But if they play a full season, you can't just have, it's like, well, teams were affected by COVID, and let's add an 8th team arbitrarily. It's like, you played a whole season. Everyone played a whole season.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
and here's another thing. Here's another thing that this is embarrassing. The NFL should be embarrassed that this has not been an option that's come up. Teams have been negatively affected. The Steelers. You have COVID. You're trying to get things reined in. There's one obvious solution. There is one obvious solution. No one has been saying it, at least not publicly loud enough. Jeremy, can you guess what that is?
A solution to this issue that we're talking about?
Just the whole NFL season and COVID for the NFL. Yes, and like, what is? You try to take a guess.
Canceling the rest of the season, period.
No. No, what they do is they suspend the entire season for a week or two. They get everyone tested, right? They let everyone recover, and they restart the whole bubble and the sanctions, and they get things reordered. Because
yeah,
because you're gonna end up playing the same number. Like, oh, you can't stop in the middle of the season. Why not? Because you're gonna play the same number of games overall, and if you don't get this thing reined in, it's gonna cause more problems. And there are teams being unfairly treated. So you know what? You get everyone to have an extra bye. Right? Everyone gets health wise, not just COVID wise, but physical health too, from being sore and injuries. You give everyone an extra week or 2 weeks. Get everyone tested in the NFL. Deal with that. Basically start fresh again for the last 4 or 5 games.
So I agree with you that that's a good idea. I just don't think they're going to do that because I don't think they think that the issue is widespread enough to need to do that. But I think if it got to the point where half the teams were struggling like Denver or the Ravens, then they probably would do something like that. Because then at that point, if you're up at like 10, 11, 12 teams that are like that, then it's automatically double that because you have to take into account the teams that they're about to play. So then you're up to like 2/3 of the league. And at that point, you might as well just take a 1 or 2 week break. I just don't think there's been enough teams that have been ravaged by this for them to do anything more than just make one-off exceptions.
Yeah.
Or in the case of the Ravens, 3-off exceptions for their ridiculous treatment they're getting. So the one other thing I wanted to cover with this story is that the 49ers, who wonderfully beat the Rams on Sunday and kept their hopes alive, are found out as they were landing in LA from on the runway. They turn their phones on and they get a tweet. They read a tweet from the Santa Clara County saying that there's a ban on contact sports in the Bay Area. So they found out that from a tweet that they're not going to be able to do anything in their own facility. So they play Sunday and win, which, I mean, just talk about how ridiculous that is, like that they're able to mentally do that. They do that not knowing where they're going to go to after, not knowing whether they're even going to be with their families for Christmas because they might be in another facility in another state somewhere practicing for games. They work out a deal with the Arizona Cardinals facility to share with them. So they're going to be bunk buddies with Arizona for indefinitely. I don't know how long they worked it out for. I guess at least until the ban is lifted. So the Niners are completely relocating practice, everything, lockers, coaches, staff, everybody relocating to Arizona to do their normal business in Arizona. And I'm just like, without getting into the politics of the existing like 30-day lockdown in California and kind of the ridiculousness of some of that was a really poor way to communicate to a sports team that they're not going to be allowed in their facility. And there has been some bad blood between the Niners organization and Santa Clara County because of Levi's Stadium. But nonetheless, that was cruddy. So I hope that a lot of other teams don't have to deal with what the 49ers just went through and are going to be going through for the next month plus. But it's not out of the question that there may be other counties or cities that just suddenly ban their teams from practicing or playing in their facilities, and teams have to relocate. So this is one of those things where if enough cities did it, just like we said, if enough teams are ravaged by people on their COVID reserve list, that the NFL might step in and do something. But for now, there's just not enough teams affected for the NFL at the NFL level to do something. So just insane. And I hope that the 49ers win some games down there in Arizona and just are unaffected psychologically by what's been going on. Because it is, I can't even imagine going to a new facility and then basically being like, oh, well, you might not be able to spend Christmas with your family because, you're going to be down a state away from them practicing for and getting ready for games. Like, that's just terrible. So, hopefully that situation gets worked out sooner than later and they're able to come back to Levi Stadium. All right, so let's move on to move away from the COVID effect and move on to our commentators say the darndest things segment. And I've got a couple this week. So I was watching the Panthers Vikings game, and one of the commentators said, in reference to the 4-7 Panthers, who are now 4-8, but at the time were 4-7, beginning of the game, he said, they really need to improve their communication. It's really on them if they are going to win this game. Like, it's not on the Vikings or how well the Vikings do or how well the Vikings play. It's purely on the Panthers whether they're going to win this game.
Yep.
And then in the Niners-Rams game, and this is Joseph's favorite announcer that he loves to quote from, that it was that
Mark
group
Schlereth.
of announcers. What?
Mark Schlereth.
Yeah, Mark Schlereth. That group of guys was doing this game, and so Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Okay, so his name's Deebo Samuel. Everybody calls him Deebo Samuel. That's not a nickname. That's just his name. So that's the context. He said, after a play, it was some side sweep play where he like broke a couple tackles and got 13 yards or something like that. The guy says, this is why he's called Deebo, because he clearly refuses to go down.
Not even, what? Not even connected.
And then a couple of the other guys like mispronounced the name of several of the Niners players and stuff. So I was like, yeah, these guys they just didn't do their research. I don't know what they're talking about. But believe it or not, for announcers, prep and homework is a thing that you need to do in order to sound good. You can't just get up there and talk out of your rear end. You have to do your research. So I thought that was funny. Okay, so let's go into our final segment of the night, predictions, starting with our tricky picks. So Joseph kind of one-upped me this week. He went 3-0. I went 1-2. And of course, any picks that were related to games that weren't played are not part of that record. So now Joseph sits one pick ahead of me, 20, 15-2. I'm 19, 16-2. So Joseph, let's hear our picks for this week.
Okay, so Falcons Saints, right? What will be more, Matt Ryan's passing touchdowns or Taysom Hill's total touchdowns? So far, Taysom Hill has not thrown a single passing touchdown yet, but he's had 2 rushing touchdowns in each game so far. Whereas Matt Ryan is only averaging 1.55 touchdowns a game. He's only had 3 or more for 2 games, and in 6 of his games, he's had 1 or 0 touchdowns.
Do we know for sure that Taysom Hill is starting this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
say Taysom Hill.
Okay, same. Rams Cardinals. There's 2 here. First one: will Aaron Donald sack Murray?
Yes.
Same. What will be higher, Murray's rushing touchdowns plus 20-yard runs, or his sacks?
The first one.
All right, same. And then Browns Titans. We have 2 more here. Will Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb each have 100 plus yards rushing. Now, context: Derrick Henry's played 7 games, and he's had 7 of those, including the last 3, and I think 5 out of the last 7. Nick Chubb has played 7 games and done it 5 times, also including the last 3, and I think 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6.
So the question was, will they both have
Yes.
100-yard rushing games?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same. Will either running back having a rushing attempt that's 35 or plus yards? So far, Chubb has done it twice. He's had 2 that are plus 50. He's had plus 20 in all remaining games. Henry's only done it twice. He had a 94 earlier in the season, and he had a 31-yard rush. Doesn't really count as 31, not 35, but 31 this last game. So will either running back have a 35-yard running attempt?
Yes.
Same. All right. Well, we have all the same tricky picks.
All right. So I can't pick one up on you. That sucks. Because I need one. Okay. So our predictions. Joseph picked up 2 games on me this week. The Texans-Lions game and the Titans-Colts game. Titans and Texans both won. So Joseph was 11-4. I was 9-6. And that there's supposed to be 16 games this week, but obviously we already talked about the fact that the Ravens-Steelers game got delayed. So that will retroactively apply to this week's number once it's played tomorrow night. So it will not be reflected in next week's record. I'm up by 5 games after there was a tallying error that I discovered in our record. So I was actually up a couple more games on Joseph than I should have been. So I did a recount, a machine recount, and yet another manual recount. No, just kidding. Of the records, and I found that Joseph actually gained a couple games. So I am, after this week, I'm 116, 59, and 1 for a 66.3%. And Joseph is 111, 64, and 1 for a 63.4%. So, Joseph, you are only 0.5% away from your best percentage. So you're slowly climbing up. I'm a couple points ahead of my best. So we are on track to have our best year yet so far. Okay, so let's go on to our Week 13 predictions. I'll go ahead and start. And then we'll trade off. So the first game is Cowboys at Ravens, which is being played on Monday, I think.
Why does that game show up first for you? I'm on ESPN. That's a Tuesday game.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me look at the schedule because. Why am I looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule right now? Come on, ESPN. Don't do this to me. It's doing a weird thing where like the graphics are screwed up. So what's the first game listed for you? Is it Saints Falcons?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the HTML code is messing up on ESPN right now, so I'm not able to see it. So I guess that should be the last one then. Is
Yes.
Cowboys Ravens last?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just move it last. So I'll start with Saints Falcons. I'm going Saints.
Same. Lions Bears, really tough one. Going Lions.
Oof. All right. I this was a tough one too. I'm going Bears, but I don't like either pick. Browns at Titans, another tough one, but I'm going Titans.
Titans. Cincinnati, Miami. Miami's got to win. Picking Miami.
Me too. Although the Raiders lost this week, right?
Yeah.
So that was a big deal for you guys. You're up a game now. I think you're 6th place in the AFC.
Yeah.
So
we're ahead of the Colts because the Colts for conference record.
Yep. Jaguars at Vikings. I'm going Vikings.
Same. Raiders, Jets. Sorry, Jets, you're not getting the win this week.
Or any week. Same. Raiders. Football team at Steelers. I'm
Wait,
going
what?
Steelers.
It skipped took you to Monday, halfway through the Sunday games.
Um, yes. I don't know. I this is the order I have. So
Okay.
maybe this is I don't know. Maybe I was looking at the wrong thing, but
I'm going Steelers as well. So next is Colts Texans. I'm going tough one here. I think Texans take this. I think Texans steal a game off the Colts.
okay. Yeah, I picked Colts on this one, but that was a tough one. So that second differentiation. So next one you have Rams Cardinals next.
Yes.
Okay. So Rams Cardinals, another really tough one. I'm going Cardinals.
Same. I wanted to go Rams, but I think Murray will edge it out. So yeah, Cardinals. Giants, Seahawks, going Seahawks.
Yeah. Same. Eagles, Packers.
Patriots, Chargers. Ugh, this is worse than the Lions, Bears.
Yeah.
I'm going Chargers though.
Yeah, I am too. I don't have a good feeling about this one, but I'm going Chargers. I've committed. Broncos, Chiefs.
Then Buffalo, Niners, Buffalo.
I know. I have to. I want to believe after this week, but not with Nick Mullins. So I'm going Bills. Cowboys, Ravens. Did we already do this, or I think we skipped it. Cowboys, Ravens. I'm going Ravens.
Same.
And then we both pick Steelers against the football team. So okay, so we have two different picks: Lions, Bears, Colts, Texans. Speaking of the football team, aren't they tied for the division now?
The Giants are in the lead, but yeah, they are tied.
At 4-7.
Yeah.
How crazy would that be if the Giants and the football team ended up with the best record in that division? It might happen. It might happen at this point. Okay. So Bucks and Panthers are on bye this week, and Joseph and I are planning on doing Colts at Texans for our game of the week. Should be an exciting division game. So with that, I will let Joseph go rest, get better. Don't end up on the COVID reserve list. Stay strong, drink some Airborne, get better. So that's a wrap for our show. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and at the Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.